Good evening, Lizzie Boys, and welcome back to my channel. Yesterday, I covered a bunch of prototype dolls in a video. Feel free to check that out if you haven't. But I was going to cover a lot more that I didn't get to because the video was starting to run kind of long. You know, I consider 13 or so minutes to be long anyway. And today I wanted to cover the rest of those because you guys seemed very interested in the topic. So with that, we're going to just dive right into it, talking about some more prototypes because I really like this subject. So first up, I want to talk about the Monster High Shriek Wrecked line. There's a lot to be said about this line, namely how it's the only good G2 line that came out, and the reason for that was because this line was initially meant to be a G1 release. You can see that the boxes look very significantly different to how they ended up turning out. Like here is Laguna's prototype box, and here was the final box. It's obviously a huge change. The artworks are different, the logo is different. The dolls do have the G2 faces, but if you look at Rochelle in these prototype photos, she has her G1 face. It's clear that this was most likely how the doll was supposed to look, but then they were changed to G2. So, you know, they had to give Rochelle a new face to reflect the new line. Not to mention a different hairstyle, because this is not the hairstyle that our final doll comes with. I just think that these packages are interesting. It's interesting to see the original artworks for the characters, how much they differ from the finalized art. Like, it's a pretty big change from Laguna's art here to Laguna's art here. They're very significantly different from one another, drawn in almost a completely different art style. Draculaura is probably one of my favorites from this line. Her artwork is really cute here too as well. Overall, I just think that the Shriek Wreck prototype boxes are interesting. They come with a lot less than the final dolls do come with. Again, Laguna here only seems to have her purse, but in the final release she had her pet as well. It's not that big of a change, but I still figured I would point that out. There is also Dana's artwork, which looks very interesting. I used to think these pictures were fake, actually, when I was younger. I don't know why. I would fall for, like, anything else, but I didn't believe this for some reason. Something about Dana always looked off to me. When she finally came out, I did end up liking her, but not enough to buy her. But yeah, I don't know much about these Shriek Wreck prototype boxes. I don't even know where these images first came from. But I do know that there are a lot of prototypes of these dolls out there, including images of some that use the G1 faces like this Rochelle. I just couldn't find any, and I didn't bother to dig any deeper. The next prototype I wanted to cover is this Ghouls Beast pet Cleo. As you can see, she's a test shot using the Bjork face on the G2 body, and there's a lot of aspects that differ between this prototype and the final doll. So this is how the final doll turned out. There's a different artwork. They named the line Ghouls Beast Pet instead of Ghouls Pet Beast, and they completely changed the interior of the packaging as well, and yeah. Otherwise, everything is about the same. The doll still has the gold bracelet, the pet is still the same. No, the pet is more of a solid gray here with like a very light white around the mouth, around the muzzle, and then here on the final one, the cat looks completely different. Yeah. Overall, this was just an interesting test shot that I found online. It looks like a stock photo to me. I genuinely don't remember where I saved this from. I just was on Google looking at prototypes and this popped up. Although, I could check the source. Oh, no, that's not how Google Images works, never mind. But this Cleo caught my eye because it's a G1 head on a G2 body, and it's just a test shot, that's all she is. Next up is the test shot of Draculaura that I actually mentioned in my video yesterday. At the time, I didn't have a photo of her, but one of you guys had a picture and DM'd me it on Instagram. Thank you so much for sending this to me. And this is the Draculaura that I mentioned, as I just said. As you guys can see, there is a different fabric used to make up the shape of her dress, you know, because that's how some test shots work. But they also practiced the rooting for Sweet 1600 Draculaura on a Dawn of the Dance head, which created this sort of hybrid. Her earrings do seem to match the release dolls, but they're in a different color. I'm assuming they had white plastic laying around the factory, so they used that instead. And basically, that's all this doll is. I'm pretty sure she sold for like a stupid amount of money. I remember I wanted to bid on her, but she got too expensive. It was interesting to see, though. This Draculaura has always been pretty cool. I like Draculauras that have black lipstick like this, so this would have been a cool thing to get, but I don't actually know who ended up buying this. If you guys have seen anyone post about this doll, let me know, because this one always caught my eye, but I have no idea who has her. The same person who sent me Draculaura also sent me this Wedona test shot, and I'm gonna be real with you guys. I would kill for her. This is so cool. Wedona is one of my all-time favorite Monster High characters. I just think she's incredibly unique with the 6 arms. I love her 6 eyes. Everything about her design just works for me, and the fact that she's a comic book nerd is the cutest thing ever. This is a test shot of her San Diego Comic-Con doll, obviously. Shoe is made entirely out of red plastic, as well as her boots, and she has operetta legs, I'm assuming, based on the color of them. Seems like they gave her operetta's legs. Everything else just seems to be like a vague color. Like this sort of tannish color used for the majority of her arms. Her belt is made out of a red plastic. The background of her box seems to be made out of remnants of the back of the box from Ghoul's Rule. Yeah, it looks like the back of the Ghoul's Rule box, Cleo's specifically, based on the name written there. And her dress. I recognize that fabric. I just can't put a name to it. But the dress on the side, her second outfit, I recognize that plastic. I just can't name it. And then her leggings are just made of a basic blue. I just think this is so cool to see. They rooted this head, they didn't paint it, and then they seal it away in this plastic makeshift box. Ugh, I need to check eBay more often because I'm pretty sure that's where this sold. This is so incredibly cool. I honestly would love something like this in my collection. It just looks so awesome. Plus, I've always regretted unboxing my Wedona, and having something like this to replace that would be pretty epic if I do say so myself. I don't know why I put on that little voice there, but I did. But yeah, these are 2 test shots that were found on eBay. So they do show up every now and then, and when they do, they go for very high prices, but they're awesome. They're really cool to look at. On the subject of test shots, another popular one that a lot of people have seen is this one of Draculaura's 2015 collector doll. This doll uses a Bjork Draculaura head, but has the rooting of the collector doll, and is on a makeshift body created out of leftover plastic. I've spoken to the person who used to own this prototype. They sold her off for various reasons, but when they had her, they noted that the body is completely stiff. They basically just made it to conceptualize how the body would look, and honestly, it's just very interesting to see. I know I've been saying that a lot, but that's what prototypes are to me. They're fascinating, they're interesting, I love seeing them. She has the rooted eyelashes, and she came with a full dress modeled to be how her dress would end up looking, basically. They used some scrap purple fabrics. For her cape, they seem to have used this translucent pink one. Once again, I feel like I recognize the fabric. It definitely existed on a Draculaura doll. Maybe it was on a Barbie fashionista that I owned at some point, because a lot of these test shots, they tend to use things left over from Barbie, left over from Monster High. It's never just from one line in specific, because to create these, they use whatever is lying around the factory. That includes aspects of other dolls. Like, maybe you could get an Ever After High doll who has a dress made out of Monster High pieces. Or you could get, like, a Monster High prototype that's made out of Barbie pieces. Like, that's usually the kind of stuff that they end up doing. I just think it's interesting to see this. How they model everything to make sure that it works, to see how it ends up looking. This prototype was extremely interesting, and I do regret not going for it while she was available for purchase. But, again, it's an interesting piece of Monster High history, and I like to look at it. Moving away from the subject of test shots, next up is this Spectra. A lot of people have seen this one, and you may be wondering what's different. Nothing, just her name. The only difference between this Spectra and the officially released one is that her name is written as Spectra von Hauntington instead of Spectra von der Geist. I am unsure of the reason for her name change. I've tried to look it up before, but I've never found any conclusive answer. I don't even think we were supposed to know that her name was meant to be Von Hauntington at some point. And the Hauntington name did actually end up being reused with Kiyomi. Because, you know, Kiyomi's last name ended up being Hauntington. I think. No. Her last name is Haunterly. Where have I heard Hauntington again? I don't know. Maybe Kiyomi's name was intended to be that at some point and I just had a brain fart. But Kiyomi's last name is Haunterly, so don't spam my comments about me misspeaking, it happens a lot. But that's all that changed here. This one is an unreleased Ghoulius playset called Ghoulia's Ugtastic Bookends. Basically, it's like a locker playset, and it would be modeled after the halls of Monster High, as you can see by those windows. And this is kind of like a sort of a concept image that shows you what everything is based off of. I would have loved to see this playset release. I would have been looking for it in thrift stores so I could get multiple of them to like recreate the halls of Monster High. It would be cool. But this unfortunately never saw a release, and I've never seen anyone find a prototype of it on the secondhand market. Maybe someday somebody will find it, but for now, this piece is pretty much lost to time. This image is like one of the only things we have of it. If you guys have ever seen any other images of this playset, please let me know, because this is the only one that I've ever found. But she looks awesome. Like, it's a cool playset. Also, can we just talk about how pretty Ghoulia's basic doll is? Just looking at her here, it just reminds me how much I like her. I think I'm gonna call it there. I have more prototypes to look at, but I don't feel like they fit the theme of this video. So, yeah. I'm gonna make like a separate video for things that were meant to release but ended up being unreleased, because there are a lot of unreleased Monster High dolls, as well as unreleased like G2 dolls. So I'll make a separate video for those. And there are a lot of hand-painted prototypes out there, which I would like to cover as well, but again, I'd like to give those sort of their own video. But yeah, overall, the concept of prototypes is really interesting, and while I may not be the most knowledgeable on the subject, I still like to look at things, form my own thoughts and opinions on them. And my thoughts and opinions are that prototypes are sick as hell, and I would love to own one someday. It would just be so awesome to own a piece of history like that. But yeah, overall, I hope you guys have been enjoying this little series of videos I've been making. It's kind of fun to just sort of dive into one subject for like 10 minutes with you guys. And yeah, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!